Oh my, how the tables have turned. All the jokes just a month ago about the NFC East. Yet, over the last month, who has the best cumulative record in the National Football League? I'll let you guess about that. Who else could it be? Me, your man, Louie Tee. Welcome to the 121st installment of the Louie Tee Network Podcast. I, of course, am your host, Louie Tee. Thank you for joining me on this glorious Monday pod. And we're getting close to the end of the season. And this is always bittersweet for me because this is the best time of the year in the NFL, to be honest with you. A lot of chaos. Who's going to end up where, how these divisions are going to shake out, who's going to make it in, who's going to be on the outside looking in, and who's going to get left out. So this is the best time of the year in terms of the NFL, but it's also a signal that the season is coming to an end. And for me, you know, being a Washington football team fan, normally my season, the competitive portion of it is usually done by now. So it's all but a formality. You know, you're just playing out the string and you understand that, you know, you're only going to get 2 or 3 more times to watch your boys perform. And then you'll get a new iteration of it next year. You know, new players, new setup, you know, all of that good stuff, all that good jazz. But it's a little different this year. And this feels different. And I've talked about this on various platforms, so I don't really need to hammer that home again. But I told you I'm a big pride guy. I pride myself on playing in a division that demands respect. And it hasn't been a respectful division, it feels like, for the last, 4 or 5 years. And obviously, I'm pretty sure if we go back 3 or 4 years, somebody had a 12-4, 13-3 record. You know, there's a Dallas season in there probably. There's a Giants. There's a year in 2016 where both Dallas and the Giants were good. The Giants, I want to say, were 11-5, and I think the Cowboys were 12-4 or 13-3. So that's 2016. The Eagles won the Super Bowl in 2017, and they were the best team in the NFL the entire season. So 17 is good. I think we started to see the decline of the division in 2018, and we really haven't been a good division since. 18, 19, and now this year, it's been down years for the NFC East. But this little stretch, I think, is a signal that this division is on the rise. Now, obviously, regression and steps back could be had in the offseason and moving forward. We've seen coaches come in, hit the ground running, have their best season in their first season, and then after that, have the air popped out of their balloon and never, ever reach the heights of their first season, i.e. Matt Nagy in Chicago comes to mind. So nothing is etched in stone with any of these teams. But you know what? I've said enough. Let's get to the Gem Droppin Session because that's what I want to talk about, the NFC Beast. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie Tee Double E. Let me open you up. You're thinking a little bit. So, over the last month, and I actually had to look this up myself because I said, I don't believe you. You need more people. When I heard this on a telecast, I said, I don't believe you. You need more people for me to believe that that's a factual statement. So I went and looked it up myself. And sure enough, the NFC East has been the best combined record division over the last month. Now, I'm not surprised by it when I sit down and I think the Giants got hot. Washington has gotten hot here late. The Eagles won on Sunday. The Cowboys have won 2 out of their last 4 contests. So understandably, you could see how this works. However, it's the NFC East. For much of the season, the NFC least. So when you think who's won the most games over a stretch this season, you're not going to think about the division, the only division that doesn't have a winning team in it. That's not the division that's going to come to mind. As a matter of fact, that'd be the last division you'd think over any stretch this season that would have the most combined victories. But that's where we sit right now over the last month. Going into week 14, the NFC East was a combined 6-5. Now, look, not great, but it's better than everybody else. And after week 14, all four teams in the division have played, and another stellar banner week from the division, 3-1, with the Giants being the only team not getting it done. Bravo, Arizona Cardinals. The division is now 9-6 over the last month of the season, and nobody in the league has been better. I'm amazed by this, but when you look at this division, it's not decided yet. You know, the Washington football team sits atop the division at 6-7, and I just want to walk this back a second before we even move on and talk about this division as a whole. When you talk about the NFC East, at no point this season, especially going back a month, at no point this season did you look at this division and think, we're not going to have a double-digit, division winner. There's going to be a double-digit loss division winner in the NFC East. There were jokes about this division could be won with 4 wins or 5 wins, and I said, you guys are tripping. Now, I did not dismiss 6-10 winning the division. It's a bad division. It had been for much of the season. But the NFC purist, the NFC East purist in me said, there's no way that this division is going to go out like some chumps. Somebody's going to step up to the plate and say, you know what? Enough is enough. We're going to start playing some quality ball, and we're going to make this thing respectable. Now, did I think that they would have, it would be a tag team partner situation, and the Giants and Washington would step up and say, hey, no. Let's chill with all of that. No, I didn't think so. I thought it would be one team. I didn't know if it was going to be the Giants or if it was going to be Washington or if it was going to be Philadelphia. I didn't think it was ever going to be the Cowboys. But then when they beat Minnesota, I was like, hey, Andy Dalton's back. That's a big win. And I came on this podcast and I said, hey, that's the biggest win that any team in this division. And it's sad. It was a sad state of affairs, and it was sad for me to say this, but it was true. At the time of Dallas beating Minnesota, who was on a 3-game winning streak, they hadn't themselves gotten back to 500 yet, but with the win over Dallas, they would have. That was the biggest win of the season. And no team, and just to think at that time, no team in the division had beaten a team with a record above 500 on the season. It was laughable, man. But that win by Dallas set the stage for what was an epic Thanksgiving game, at least for Washington fans, myself included, because again it was 3-7 versus 3-7, and the winner was going to be in first place. You never heard of anything like that before. We joked earlier in the season, no division has ever been closer to the first overall pick in the draft and being in first place at the same time. Like, it was so many jokes being thrown around, and they were all true, and you couldn't be mad. All I could do was laugh because our division was tragic. However, now I'm looking up at the standings, and I see that Washington has won 4 in a row. They're now 6-7. And what's crazy is Washington is not only leading this division, they're also leading the wild card. So, in terms of the teams that aren't already in, like they're behind Arizona, who currently sits at 7th in the wild card, but they're ahead of Minnesota, who's 6-7. They're ahead of Chicago, who's 6-7. And anybody else that wants smoke at 6-7, we're right there. We're ahead of all of those teams. So, it's amazing how far we've come. And we sit there and we're playing exceptional football, especially on the defensive side. And, nobody wants it with this team right now. Nobody. And, the quarterback situation is a little off-putting, and it's nerve-wracking, and we'll see what happens this week. But this defense is playing inspired football. We've got playmakers. We have some guys out, due to injury that we may be getting back here shortly. And we're relatively healthy this season. We've been relatively healthy. We've been one of the few fortunate teams that haven't dealt with a ton of injury. We've had some injuries, obviously, at the quarterback position, but we've steered clear of massive injury for the most part. So here we are at 6-7. with a chance to not only win the division, but we have a chance to win this division with a respectable, 9-7, 8-8 mark. Who would have thought that this division, the NFC East, or as a lot of you called it, the NFC least, would have a chance to be won by anything other than a record south of 500. Amazing how far it's come. And they're not the only team with a chance to win this thing with a record of 500 or better. Well, we're the only team that can win it with a record over 500, but the Giants can still win this division at 8-8. If they were to get hot, beat Cleveland, beat Baltimore, and then beat the Dallas Cowboys in week 17, they could get hot and win this thing at 8-8. Highly unlikely, but from where they've come, remember the Giants were one of the last teams to have their go. You still got the Jets sitting there at 0 and now 13 on the season, but the Giants started off the season 0-5 before they beat Washington for their first win of the season. The Giants were 1-7 before they beat Washington for their second win of the season. Just think about where these teams were. After the loss to the Giants, both of those teams sat at 2-7 in the putrid NFC East, both occupying last place, with the Giants being able to cling to the fact that, hey, we swept you, so we're not technically in the cellar. You're down there by yourself, as we looked up at Dallas and Philadelphia. Now, you go a month later, and the tables have turned. Washington has won 4 in a row. They're 6-7. The Giants have won 4 out of their last 5, and they were winners of 4 straight until they lost on Sunday, and they're 5-8. And then you got the Eagles all of a sudden, and they were the team that they were the scariest because they had that tie. They had that nasty, stinking tie, and you sit there and you say, man, that may ultimately win them the division. They had all the struggles with Carson Wentz at quarterback. They make the change. Nobody except my man Silver V gave them a chance. Silver Villains came on the podcast on Friday and said, this is the biggest trap game I've ever seen in my life. And if you can't see it, you're blind. Well, he was right. This was a massive trap game. He damn near called the score exactly 24-20. It was 21. It was 24-21. But the Eagles won the game. Hurts played well, rushed for over 100 yards. And to me, that was the biggest thing that was different, is that Hurts gave them a chance with his legs. Wentz refused to do it. Wentz would just stand back there, cower, and take a sack instead of running. And that wasn't Carson Wentz 2 years ago. Well, I don't know what happened in the last 2 years that made him decide that running is illegal. Because you can run. He's athletically gifted as Carson Wentz. He's fully capable, and he used to run all the time. Now all of a sudden, he refused to run. He takes sacks. Well, guess what? Jalen Hurts wasn't doing that. He wasn't taking sacks. That A gap opened up. That B gap came alive. He took off. And he rushed for over 100 yards on the Saints. Think about that. He had more rushes than the running back in the game, Miles Sanders, who also went over 100 yards, courtesy of an 82-yard touchdown run. But that's nor here nor there. Both guys had over 100 yards, but it was Jalen Hurts with 18 rushes to Miles Sanders' 14 rushes in the game that was the lead in terms of amount of totes. So that's something to take a look at, moving forward. They got Arizona this week. The Arizona Cardinals went to New York and destroyed the Giants. But this Eagles team is fully capable of bagging up Kyler Murray, making him uncomfortable, and winning that football game. And they would be just as alive as anybody in this division, because remember, they play Washington in week 17. So if they can continue to win, and they got 2 NFC East games to finish up, do the Eagles. They got the Cowboys and then Washington. So if they can find a way to go to Arizona and win, and Washington doesn't beat Seattle, all of a sudden now you're looking at a scenario where week 17 could be for the division. So the Eagles aren't out of this thing yet. But I don't trust Philadelphia to take care of business. Even Dallas isn't technically dead, sitting there at 4 and now 9 on the season. Technically, they're not dead, and that was a win on the road again. Look, they were supposed to win that game. I still don't have any confidence. I still think the Cowboys are a bad football team. I still think they stink. I thought that Cincinnati moved the football in the game. They just turned it over a ton. I mean, it was a turnover fest. It was funny because watching that game, their head coach, Zach Taylor, got pissed off every time somebody fumbled, and he benched them. He put them in timeout. So on the first possession, they're moving the football. Giovanni Bernard fumbles the football. So he benches him. We don't see Giovanni Bernard until the first possession of the second half. The second possession, so he puts this guy in, Williams. All right. He runs up the back of the left tackle, left or right tackle or guard, and he fumbles. He benches both the offensive lineman and the running back that fumbled the ball. And then he brings in, he has another play where Alex Erickson, who has led the league in fumbles on punt returns, which, again, if you're worried about ball security, he's the last guy you want touching it. They give it to him on a jet sweep, and he fumbles the ball. I mean, it was amazing. It's like they had grease on their hands or something in the first half of that game, and the Cowboys took advantage of every single one of those mistakes, and they ran up the score 30-7 and dominated Cincinnati. Cincinnati stinks. They're not winning another game. So I knew Dallas was going to win that game. The real question is Dallas any good? Is that one win enough of a confidence builder to then give them a chance to go home and beat San Francisco? I don't think so. We just played San Francisco. They had a ton of injuries in the game, so that's something to keep an eye on. But if the 49ers haven't waved the white flag, if they haven't thrown in the towel officially, and even though the odds are stacked against them to make it to the postseason, and they may be mathematically eliminated at this point, I can't say that for sure. But even if they are eliminated, if Kyle Shanahan won't let these guys quit, they're good enough to beat Dallas. They're good enough defensively. They're good enough offensively with that run game. They're good enough to destroy the Cowboys. I didn't see a Cowboys defense that looked reinvigorated and stymied the Bengals. I saw a 2-10-1 team doing what 2-10-1 teams do, self-destruct. And the Cowboys said, hey, we're just going to move out of the way and let you do what you're doing right now because we're loving it. We're really, really appreciative of what you're doing right now. So I don't think the Cowboys are really in this race, but they're not dead. And with them having 2 NFC East games left on the schedule, they can do some serious damage. And if they were to get hot, win their final 3, and Washington stumbles down the stretch and loses their final 3, the Cowboys could be the ones that emerge at 7-9. Look, there's so many scenarios here. That's the least of the scenarios I think that are going to take place. That's the one that I say, if we were ranking percent chances of teams winning the division, I'd put Dallas at like 0.001%. Like, they have no chance of winning this division. With Washington, I'd put it at 75%. I've put the Giants at 20%, and I put the Eagles at 5%. I still don't believe in Jalen Hurts. I don't believe that this Eagles team is all of a sudden woke up and they've seen the light. And I don't think the Giants, a lot of people made a lot of Washington's schedule. Oh my God, they got Pittsburgh and they got San Francisco and Seattle. Well, Washington has done a hell of a job navigating their schedule. I'm not saying they're going to win every game down the stretch, but they've done a tremendous job. And all I asked for, we had 3 straight roadies, and it started with a short turnaround on Thanksgiving versus Dallas. We beat Cincinnati, and we had a quick turnaround on Thanksgiving on a Thursday, and that was the first of 3 straight roadies at Dallas, at Pittsburgh, at San Francisco, that turned into at Arizona. So we had to return to the scene of the crime. And I said, I want 2 out of 3 of these. Really, going into it, it was like, hey, let's just get one of these first. Let's just get one of these, and then we'll see what happens after that. Well, we got the first one out of the way against Dallas. Cool. Well, now I'm greedy. Let's get 2 out of 3. I don't want more than that. All right. Didn't expect to go to Pittsburgh and win. Just give me 2 out of 3. If we could find a way to be competitive against Pittsburgh, take that momentum into San Fran and beat them and win 2 out of 3 of these, I feel really good about what we just accomplished on this 3-game roadie. Well, we said, to hell with that. We beat Pittsburgh. I'm greedy. I want all 3. Okay. Then we go to San Francisco. The offense goes to sleep. I mean, night. They must have saw Dak Prescott before the game and got one of those mattresses because they went to sleep. Well, the defense said, don't worry, we got it. We're on security watch all night. We'll make sure that you stay safe while you sleep. And they took care of business against the 49ers. And now Washington is really in the driver's seat with the sweep of the Cowboys and already having one in their back pocket versus Philadelphia. They're in the driver's seat. But, the Giants still sit there just a game back. And that's the team that scares me the most. Because all they got to do is win one game we're not expecting them to win. Because I don't think they're going to beat Cleveland and I don't think they're going to beat Baltimore. But if Washington can, with this lead now, all Washington has to do to me is just win one more game. One more game. You get to 7-9, I think you win. I don't think the Giants are getting to 7-9. I don't think they're going to win 2 out of their final 3. It's not out of the realm of possibility, though. But I think 7-9 wins this division. The Eagles aren't getting to 7-8-1. They're not winning the remaining 3 games of the season. I don't think. Because I'm going to tell you right now, they're not beating us in week 17. So I feel confident that if the Giants just lose one more game, we're in a great spot because I don't think the Giants are going to win 2 straight. They could beat the Ravens. They could beat the Browns, but if they lose to the Browns on Sunday, whether Washington wins or not, if Washington wins on Sunday and beats the Seattle Seahawks, you can wrap it up. They're playing out of their gourds at that point if they beat Seattle. But if they don't beat Seattle, but they bounce back the next week and they get Carolina and they take care of business there, and that's no easy gimme. The Carolina Panthers have been game all season long, and by then Christian McCaffrey should be back. But if they find a way to win out of the next 2 games, does Washington, and the Giants don't win anything at that point, it's over. It's done. So feel really good about where Washington is right now, but this division is turned around. All of a sudden, the Eagles just beat the number 1 team in the NFC. Washington a week ago just beat the best team in the AFC, or at the time was the best team in the AFC, was the best team in the NFL. And now all of a sudden, this division that once looked like, and the Giants, don't forget about what they did with Colt McCoy at quarterback, went to Seattle, who just put up 40 on the Jets, mind you. Stymied those boys, limited them to 12, and beat them 17-12 in their building. Respect is not given, it is earned. You may think this division is a joke, and you've been laughing all year. I'm laughing at you. I'm laughing at you now. You told me I was ugly. I was scared to crack a smile. Ha, 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 ha. Yeah, you were laughing at us earlier, and you had every right to. But I'm going to tell you right now, your ass better stop laughing. Because this division, we ain't playing. Especially the team at the top. Let's get to our Sunday slate of games. And I like to call this Slate Skatin. So put your skates on. Let's go skating, man. All right. I got on rollerblades. You know that. I like them in one straight line, and then I'm off and I'm running. So let's go through these games quickly. And these games were amazing. They were fun. I enjoyed them thoroughly. And it was fun because Washington played at 4:25. So I got to watch all the 1 o'clock games, essentially, without having to really focus in on my team. That's the 2nd straight week I got to do that. Because we had or 3rd straight week, actually, because Thanksgiving and then the Monday game. And then now this game was at 4:25. So it's amazing for a team that wasn't supposed to have a bunch of games outside of the 1 o'clock window. Here we are playing multiple games in 3 straight weeks out of the 1 o'clock window, but on Sunday. But that's no here nor there. Texans Bears starts us off a 36-7 rout of the Texans. And I kind of warned you about this. I said, who the hell is Deshaun Watson going to throw the football to? It's actually sad because Deshaun was so distraught after last week's loss to Indianapolis, in which he felt sort of responsible with the fumble late, even though it's a bad snap. He still could have handled that snap. He bobbled it. It got knocked out of his hands. He couldn't recover it. The Colts win the game, hold on 26-20. And he's like, man, I'm sick of this shit. I'm tired of losing. And I looked up and I said, bro, there's more losses to come. Who's going to be out there catching passes from you? You know, you got Will Fuller suspended for the remainder of the season. You released Kenny Stills, and Brandon Cooks is going to be out with an injury this week. Like, who are we throwing the football to? You know, and no David Johnson in the game. He was out, I think, due to COVID. So, like, really, what are we doing here? It was him and Duke Johnson, and that's not enough. And I told you the Bears, even though they lost last week, they had scored 30 the week before against the Lions, and they were playing inspired football. And look, I'm going to say this right now. And you know how I am, and you know how I've been. I'm a staunch supporter of Mitchell Trubisky. Mitchell Trubisky can start in this league. He can play in this league. He should be starting for the Chicago Bears. That's, to me, end of discussion. All of you Mitchell Trubisky haters out there, I'm not going to sit here and argue with you because there's enough evidence as to Mitchell Trubisky having his moments where he stinks. But I've watched enough football to know when a guy can do it with this defense. And I told you, there's weapons in Chicago. That's the thing that always bothered me about this whole season when we talked about their offense being terrible and this, that, and the third. I'm like, there's enough offensive weaponry in Chicago. There's no excuse. I don't want to hear about they don't have anything. They got a number one wide receiver. They got a bunch of complementary parts. They got Jimmy Graham and a rookie tight end and Cole Kmet that can get the job done. They got a running back that I really like. And as in his second year, that's been playing some really good football the last couple of weeks with some big runs. He had an 80-yard run for a touchdown in this game. I'm like, there's enough talent. David Montgomery at the running back position, and they don't even have Cohen. And they normally would have had him this year, but he tore his ACL in like week 3. I said, this team has enough talent. And the thing that they were missing was the mobility of Mitchell Trubisky, his ability to extend plays, use his legs when he has to. And I thought that that's where the mistake was made when they benched him. And now you see him back into the lineup. And yeah, the Green Bay game happened. All right. But after that, 30 and 36 respectively in the last 2 games. And Mitchell Trubisky was outstanding in this game. 24 of 33, 267, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Don't talk to me about Mitchell Trubisky not being able to get it done, because he can. All right. He needs to be more consistent. I'll grant you that. But Mitchell Trubisky can play. They went 10-6 and won the division with Mitchell Trubisky at quarterback. I refuse to believe that this man cannot get it done. So, Allen Robinson, it's amazing what happens when you get a guy that can move around a little bit and extend and give Allen Robinson some opportunities to make some plays. 9 catches, $123 and a touchdown in this game. As I mentioned, David Montgomery, 11 carries, 113 yards, had the big 80-yard touchdown run on the first offensive play from scrimmage for the Bears in this game. So this thing was 30-7 at the half. I mean, the Texans had little to no fight in them in this game. They were routed. Poor Deshaun Watson actually got hurt in this game before. I think he did return later on in the game. It doesn't matter. The Texans are not a good football team. And the Bears, I think it's too little too late. When they were on this ugly skid and they could see the writing on the wall, they should have went back to Trubisky. He did have an injury in there. And so I think it did push back any decision that needed to be made. But I think they could have made the playoffs. And remember, I predicted the Bears would be a playoff team this year. And they started out like they were going to be. And the defense was good enough, and it's a shame. Because if they would have just stuck with Trubisky throughout, and they got antsy because they saw Nicholas Foles there and they thought he could do what he did in Philadelphia. He only works in Philadelphia. The Rams had to find that out. The Chiefs had to find that out. The Jags had to find that out. And now you're finding that out. He only works in Philadelphia. That's it. So they'd have just stuck with Mitchell Trubisky. They'd be like 7-5 or 8-4 right now, and they'd be right in the middle of the playoff chase, and the Packers wouldn't be celebrating another NFC North division crown because it wouldn't be over already. But you're 6-7, and more likely than not going to make the playoffs this year. And so it's a shame. This was a dominant performance from start to finish. 7 points. That's all the Texans can muster. I mean, honestly, again, Kiki QT, that's the best you got for me, right? Okay. All right. Cool beans. I digress. The Texans are 4-9. And you know what makes it that much worse if you're a Texans fan? You're 4-9 and this is going in vain. You don't even have a first-round pick. you can't even say, well, if we're going to stink, at least we're going to get something elite. That pick is going straight to the Miami Dolphins. So that's rough. That's really, really rough. Cowboys, Bengals, I've alluded to this game already. I'll make it short and sweet. Neither one of these teams are any good. Cowboys win this game 30-7. They're now 4-9 on the season. As I mentioned, they're not out of it in the NFC East, but they'd have to essentially run the table. And their schedule is very doable. I mean, San Francisco, the Eagles, and then the Giants. Like, they could win all 3 of those games. Obviously, that would actually be beneficial for Washington. for Dallas to get hot and win all three of their final, or at least the final two. They don't have to beat San Francisco. That doesn't make any difference to us. But it'd be really beneficial if Dallas decided to get hot and win 3 straight to finish up. Because I don't see Washington losing all 3 of their final games of the season. And all Washington would have to do at that point is win 1 game. And then if they finish 7-9 with Dallas, they win the tiebreaker because they swept them in the season series. So at the end of the day, this was a spirited effort from a defensive unit that had been questioned all season. And I thought the questions really reached a crescendo on, after the Ravens game, almost giving up nearly 300 yards on the ground. There were a lot of questions about the heart of this defense and the effort of this defense. The coaching staff came into question, and a lot of those times the questions that were being asked of the coaches, they were deflecting it to the players like, hey, this isn't a coaching issue. So, I thought there could have been a mutiny here, but it was the right team at the right time. Had this been, instead of it being Cincinnati, had this been San Francisco instead, they probably would have got their asses run again, because again, Cincinnati, I just want to go through the total yards in this game real quick. Cincinnati was 9 of 16 on third downs, okay? So it's not like they were extremely efficient. Over 50% on third downs they converted against Dallas in this game. They had more total yards of offense than Dallas did. Dallas only had 272 yards of total offense. The Bengals had 309, okay? The Bengals had more passing yards, and a higher completion rate. The Bengals had the exact amount of rushing yards that the Cowboys did. Both teams had 101 rushing yards in this game. And so, everything that you looked at in this game, if you watched this game, you said the Bengals are doing all of the things necessary to be in this game to have a chance to win. And here's the difference in the game right here. These 2 stats in particular. 1 of 3 in the red zone were the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cowboys were 2 of 4. Not much better, but better. And here's the big number. 3 fumbles, 3 turnovers. Cowboys 0 turnovers in the game. Bengals 3 lost fumbles. That'll get you beat every time. And oh, by the way, the Cowboys had 2 defensive touchdowns in this game. That'll get you beat every single time. So at the end of the day, the Bengals were generous, and their generosity cost them an opportunity to win this football game. And again, I don't think the Cowboys are any better, but sometimes all you need is a win. I remember after beating Cincinnati as a Washington fan, thinking to myself, well, that was cool, but it was Cincinnati. I don't really know how to feel about it. Obviously I want to win the game. Don't get it twisted, but I don't think it's going to really lead to anything necessarily, but it did. It sparked this 4-game win streak. That first win versus Cincinnati catapulted Washington into where they are right now. And, maybe it could do the same thing for Dallas. We'll see. Highly unlikely. They're not Washington. They're not playing the kind of defense Washington is playing. Their coaching staff isn't nearly as good as Washington's, or the Giants for that matter. So we'll see what happens. But Cowboys get the win. They're 4-9, and they're not dead in the NFC East, at least not quite yet. For the Bengals, they're now 2-10-1, and they're a train wreck. And I do think changes are coming this offseason, unfortunately, for Zach Taylor and his staff. Chiefs and Dolphins. I meant to cut up my podcast episode from Friday and play you the snippet of what I said was going to happen in this game, because it was so prophetic. It was almost as good as my man Silver V and his prediction of the Saints and Eagles game. I wasn't as good as him because he literally gave you the score damn near down to the T. But I told you, I said, and I told you, this wasn't to disrespect the Dolphins, calling them a fake tough guy, because their defense is legit, okay? They're just young. That's all I was trying to illustrate there, is that this is a young team, and they're not going to be able to beat a veteran group like the Chiefs. That's it. That's all I was trying to illustrate. Like, if I'm going in the playoffs and the Dolphins are there, I'm looking at the Dolphins and I'm saying, you have no idea what it feels like to be here. You look like food. I'm ready to eat. That's all I was trying to say. And so I said, at some point in this game, the Dolphins are going to be down 3 scores. At some point, this is going to look like a blowout. And I said they're eventually going to climb back into this game and be respectable, because that's what they've done this season. They don't get their asses beat. They make it respectable. And what happened? The Chiefs even did them a huge solid and spotted them. A 10-piece. Here's 10 points, man. See what you can do with this. Mahomes was awful early on. And when I say awful, by Mahomes standards. The man had like 3 incompletions and 2 were interceptions. Other than that, he was doing the things that Mahomes does. But he did throw 3 interceptions. Remember, he came into this game with only 2 INTs the entire season, and they both were to the Raiders. So Mahomes is playing at this ridiculous pace, and he comes into this game, and he throws 3 interceptions to 3 different members of the Dolphins secondary. The first going to Byron Jones, their big offseason acquisition, off of a tip ball by Andrew Van Ginkel on a screen. Beautiful play by Van Ginkel. Great catch by Jones. Then you get another gift from Mahomes. This might have been the worst throw of the game to Rowe, the safety. It's an overthrow to Clyde Edwards-Helaire out of the backfield. It tips off of Hilaire's hands. Remember, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is like 5'7", 5'8". Can't be overthrowing him too high. Tips off of his fingers right into the hands of Rowe, who picks it off, and the Dolphins are in business. And then the best of the 3 picks in terms of throws, what a play by Xavier Howard. To me, Xavier Howard, for my money, the best bang for buck for me is Xavier Howard at the cornerback position. He's the best corner in football. Don't throw to him. I mean, unless your guy is screaming wide open, don't throw it to him, because you don't get to make mistakes. Like with corners in this league, most of the corners, even the good ones, you can make a mistake or 2 around them and they won't necessarily make you pay. Your receiver might not catch the football, but they're not going to make you pay. That won't be your last play of that possession. With Xavier Howard, you make a mistake anywhere in his general vicinity and your ass is heading to the bench. Whether it's 1st, 2nd, or 3rd down, you're done. Okay? He's picking it off. And he had a one-handed pick on an offering up to Tyreek Hill. That is just, it wasn't the best pick of the day, which is crazy, because the best pick of the day came in the Raiders and Colts game. But this was like it was 1A, 1B. This was 1B. It wasn't quite 1A, it was 1B. But the Chiefs spotted them 10 points. Mahomes took a 30-yard sack in the game. I've never seen anything like that before. He ran backwards 30. It was 4th and 42 when they punted the ball from the back of their own end zone. It was 4th and 42. I've never seen anything. Like, the start for the Chiefs in this game was abysmal. Yet the Dolphins missed a field goal and they didn't capitalize with touchdowns. And if you want to beat a team like the Chiefs, field goals don't win games, touchdowns do. We already know the rules to the game, didn't play. And so they gave them a 10-point cushion, and then they proceeded to score the next 30 straight in the game. And I told you at some point they're going to be up by 3 scores. I said 3 scores, okay? And they were up by 3 scores, by 20, 30-10. And then the Dolphins came roaring back, as I anticipated they would. They made this a contest. They made it interesting. They cut this thing to a 30-24 game. And that's when the Chiefs said, all right, we got to stop playing, because now y'all think y'all can win the game. And so they go down and they get a field goal, extended out to 33-24. And then the Dolphins get a field goal late to give themselves a chance, kick the onside kick, don't recover. And the Chiefs hold on for a 33-27 victory. Score is a little misleading because, again, this is a dominant performance by the Chiefs for much of the game. Not the first quarter, but the second and into the third was dominant. And then the Dolphins got on their horse in the fourth quarter and made it interesting late. Mike Gesicki continues to be one of the best weapons that the Dolphins have in their arsenal in this game. He got injured at one point, though, but another touchdown for him, a number of catches in the game for Mike Gesicki. We saw a lot of Lynn Bowden Jr. in this game. Remember, they traded for him. Remember, that was a third-round pick of the Las Vegas Raiders, and they moved him this offseason. That tells you a lot there, that there just wasn't a good fit there for whatever reason. The Dolphins used him a couple of times to try to throw passes. Remember, Lynn Bowden played a little quarterback at Kentucky, but he caught the football in this game. You know what? It's crazy. A lot of these guys that were cast off elsewhere are showing up in Miami, and they're finding ways to get it done with these guys. You remember Hollins, the North Carolina guy that was, quote unquote, just a special teamer in Philadelphia, and they could never seem to throw him the football? Check this out. He caught a bunch of balls. I guarantee you he had at least 6 catches in this game. I'm going to look it up right now. Hollins had 5 catches for 66 yards. This is a guy that in Philadelphia might not have had 5 catches his entire career, and they just pegged him as this dude is like 6'5". Okay, he's a big dude, big frame, huge catch radius. I'm like, why don't you just give him some chances? Mac Hollins. The Dolphins are like, hey, you get out there and catch some balls. They're just throwing random dudes out there and they're catching footballs. It's crazy. But they fall short, and they're 8-5, and they're going to miss the playoffs. Baltimore's coming for them. Baltimore's going to win tonight, and they're going to flip places with the Dolphins, who will be on the outside looking in. And I told you, I don't think the Ravens are going to lose another game this season, and they're going to end up on the outside looking in. It's frustrating because this Dolphins team defensively, now 20 straight games with at least 1 turnover forced. You know how hard that is to do? Think about that for a second. To force a turnover is tough in this league. You could go stretches without forcing a turnover, 2 or 3 games at a time. They've done it now 20 straight games dating back to last season. It's amazing what they're doing. And they're not just forcing a turnover. The Chiefs were the only team in the league this season that hadn't had multiple turnovers in a game. That changed when they played the Dolphins. Okay, they turned it over 3 times, did Mahomes, in this game. He went from 2 interceptions on the season to now 5 after he met the Dolphins, but the Chiefs still get the win. They're now 12-1, and the bigger picture here is with the loss later on that evening by the Steelers, they're now in sole possession of the number 1 seed, and I don't think the Steelers are going to be able to wrestle that back away from these Chiefs. So they're gonna probably waltz into the playoffs with that first round bye. And as we already mentioned, all roads to the Super Bowl in Tampa in the AFC go through Arrowhead in Kansas City, and that's not changing now. And I think it's even more definitive after the loss by the Steelers and the Chiefs continuing to win. Cardinals Giants. 26-7 win for the Cardinals. This was impressive, but this is what I expect from the Cardinals. Just when you think that they're dead, you know, and they're lifeless, and we've seen this from them. Early in the season, they start off red hot. You know, they beat the 49ers in week 1. Remember, that's when the 49ers were the defending NFC champions, and nobody expected them to have the season that they're having or have all the injuries that they've had. But they jumped out and bit those boys in Arizona, in San Francisco in week 1. And then they beat Washington in week 2, and everybody's like, man, look out for Arizona. And then they lose at home to the Lions, and they lose on the road at Carolina. You're like, ugh, what's this? And then they go to the Jets, and they kind of reinvigorate themselves. They beat the Jets, and then they win another game, and all of a sudden they're on one of these win streaks again. And then they started to have this lull again, and you're like, ugh, New England, really? You know, you get the Hail Murray, and you're like, oh, here come the Cardinals, and they had a big win against Seattle on a Sunday night, and then they barely lost to Seattle on a Thursday, and you're like, hey, man, this team, they're dangerous, you know? And then you lose to New England, and, you know, there's another ugly loss in there, and you're like, what are you doing? Seriously, what are you doing? And they were due for one of these. And so they go to New York, and they spanked the Giants. I mean, this thing was really, if they could convert in the red zone, you got to give the Giants defense credit. If they could have converted in the red zone, this would have been an absolute spanking. This could have been 40-7 instead of 26-7. There were opportunities galore for the Cardinals, and they simply just couldn't convert, and they had to settle for field goals. Matter of fact, I'm dying to see what their red zone efficiency was in this game. 2 for 7 in the red zone. Wait a minute. I didn't think it was that bad. Wow. 2 of 7 in the red zone. First of all, you got to give the Giants credit for that. But my God, that is terrible. And if you ask me the one place that Cliff Kingsbury has struggled as a play caller this year, it's in the red zone. My God, that is awful. 2 of 7 in the red zone. Credit has to be given to the Giants to keep them out of the end zone that many times. But as you can see, this game could have been 40-7 if they scored touchdowns. But they didn't. They had to settle for a bunch of field goals. And luckily enough for them, they made those field goals. And they take care of the Giants, a red-hot Giants team that had won 4 straight. Daniel Jones came back, and he was awful in this game. He got sacked 7 times. Colt McCoy comes in, or I think he got sacked 6 times. And then Colt McCoy comes in, and he gets sacked twice. And Daniel Jones fumbled like 4 times in this game, 3 or 4 times. It was bad. They had 3 fumbles lost. Hassan Reddick goes apeshit in this game. 5 sacks. A Arizona Cardinals franchise record 5 sacks for Hassan Reddick, who is a free agent this offseason, by the way. So you talk about making yourself some money. Hassan Reddick may have done that in week number 14 against these Giants. Big win for the Cardinals. They're now back into the playoffs as the 7 seed, coupled with a Vikings loss to Tampa. They're now 7-6 and in the driver's seat for the number 7 seed in the playoffs. If they continue to win down the stretch, they got the Eagles. Not going to be an easy contest, but very winnable. They take care of business like they're supposed to. They will make the postseason more likely than not, but we'll see. This has been an up and down Cardinals team. What you expect from a second-year head coach and a young team, up and down, the growing pains that come with that. But this was a big win for them, for the Giants. Massive letdown after 4 straight wins that catapulted you to the top of the NFC East. You didn't get what you needed out of the quarterback position. And the offensive line was a massive sieve in this game. There was a lot wrong with this performance from the Giants offensively, but once again, you have to give credit to this Giants defense. If nothing else, they're going to keep this team competitive because they play good defense. Jabril Peppers has been a steal for the Giants. A steal. This guy is everywhere. He was everywhere in this game, and he helped keep them competitive in this football game. Felt like they should have been getting blown out, and at one point, this game, it's 20 to, I think it's 13-7, I think, at one point in this game, because it might have been, let me see, it was 20-7, and you're thinking to yourself, hey, they get a stop, get the football back, they got a chance to really make this a ball game, but it never came to fruition. Big win for the Cardinals, tough loss for the Giants, who now fall to second place in the NFC East at 5-8, just a game back of Washington. Vikings, Buccaneers. Vikings came into the weekend holding on to the 7 seed in the NFC playoffs. This loss, however, dropped them to 6-7, under 500. And I told you, they're not making the playoffs. I told you they're an 8-8 team at best. I told you they were 8-8 before the season started. And I told you they're going to be 8-8. I can tell you this, though. They got hosed in this game. They really did. One of the most egregious pass interference penalties you'll see all season long. Score 7-6 at the time of this. And first of all, before I even get to the pass interference, coaches have to know when to say when with field goal kickers. I get it. There's a little bit of loyalty that goes into holding on to field goal kickers because you much rather deal with the evil you know than the evil you don't. And Dan Bailey's made some big kicks for the Vikings, and he's done some good things, and he's gone through slumps, and he's gotten through those slumps, and he's been really consistent at times. But when they first signed Dan Bailey, he was awful. Then he got out of that funk, and he kicked really well for them. Dan Bailey has been putrid this season, and Mike Zimmer refuses to try out kickers and bring somebody else in. At some point, you got to say to yourself, this guy is absolute, just like in Tennessee with Stephen Gostkowski, at some point you got to say, this guy is absolutely killing me. Now, if I'm a bad team, like the Chargers with Michael Badgley, I might hold on to him because I know this guy is capable and we stink anyway. So it's no reason to be hasty and make a decision that may backfire. But if I'm a good team and I know it's going to come down to some field goals and some games, I can't afford to have a kicker missing kicks. I just can't. And so, not at the rate that these kickers are missing. Now, it's one thing if your kicker misses one kick, and then the next week he misses a kick. And sometimes that one kick could hurt you, could kill momentum. You could lose a game by 2, and you say if you made that field goal, it could change things. But, if he's 3 of 4, and then the next week he's 2 of 3, and the next week he's 1 of 2, or the next week he's 2 of 2, and then the week after that he's 2 of 3, and the next week after that he's 2 of 2, and then the next week after that he's 4 of 5. And you're like, okay, I can deal with that. What I can't deal with are the missed extra points and the 3 missed field goals in one game, and then the next week you're missing another 3 field. Like, I can't deal with that kind of incompetence. Not when I'm trying scratch and claw my way out of a 1-4 start to the season. I can't have you missing kicks and to the point where I'm afraid to put you on the field in obvious field goal kicking situations. I can't have it. Dan Bailey missed an extra point. That's why the score was 7-6. In the scenario that I'm going to post to you in the pivotal portion of this game that I thought was really a terrible job of officiating, it was 7-6 because he missed the extra point on the opening, the first touchdown of the game scored by either team. He missed 3 field goals in this game, including a chip shot that would have given the Vikings, if he'd have made the damn extra point, a 10-0 lead. Instead, it would have been 9-0 still. Missed that extra point or field goal. And the Buccaneers promptly went down, and Brady hits Scotty Miller for the deep bomb touchdown, gave him the lead. And from that point forward, the Buccaneers really never looked back. So I just had to get that out of the way. 4 missed kicks in this game for Dan Bailey to go with the 3 missed kicks from last week versus Jacksonville. 7 missed kicks in 2 weeks. I can't have it. Can't have it. But I digress. So let's get back to that pivotal portion of the game that I thought where things changed. Rookie cornerback Jeff Gladney is singled up outside with Mike Evans. And Mike Evans falls down, and so the Buccaneers are inside the Vikings 10-yard line. It's like first and goal from, let's call it second and goal, maybe even third and goal from the, let's call it second and goal from the, matter of fact, I can look the play up. I don't even have to guess. I don't have to guess what down it was or any of that stuff. I can tell you right now what happened. So here it is right here. It was second and goal from the 7. Okay, second and goal from the 7. He throws a comeback to Mike Evans towards the front pylon. Evans slips on his break, coming out of his break to come back to the football. Gladney doesn't touch him. He doesn't molest him. He's not the cause of the slip and fall. He goes after the football, tips it in the air. As he falls on the ground, the ball just falls onto his chest. He picks it off. And he gets up to start running, and the officials are blowing the whistles. First of all, that was an interception. That's number 1. He should have been up and running, and they might have returned it for a touchdown. That's number 1. They blew the play dead because they didn't think he caught it, which he did. Number 2, they throw the flag for pass interference. It is the most egregious, phantom pass interference penalty I've seen all season long, and it's not close. It's not close. Just because a guy falls down doesn't mean the defender is the cause of a guy falling down. You have to actually see the contact that forces the receiver to fall down before you throw the flag. That's a pick by Brady. And the Vikings should have the football. And really, Jeff Gladney should be running the other way. However, okay, fine. That play changed everything because on the next play they scored a touchdown and go up 14-6, and the game was never the same. The game was never the same, and ultimately was 23-6 before the Vikings tried to climb back in. But if they don't score that touchdown there, if that's an interception and the Vikings are still up, still trailing that game 7-6, who knows what happens? Who knows? It's poor officiating, and at that point of the game, you can't cost the team. This late in the season, you can't cost teams games. That call changed the whole complexion of that football game. Totally skewed it in the favor of the Buccaneers. Now, I'm not saying the Buccaneers weren't the better team, but when you do things like that, you really hurt a team. You really, really do hurt a team. And I didn't think they ever recovered from that poor call. I really don't. And I thought that the Vikings had chances in this game. But they just failed to get stops when they needed to get stops during that stretch when they were down. And you know what? It's hard to overcome all the missed field goals because not only are you not putting points on the scoreboard when you do that, you're also giving up. Like one of those kicks was a 51-yarder, and you probably ask yourself, why the hell is Mike Zimmer confident in Dan Bailey, who's missed up until that point 5 straight kicks or 5 kicks in 2 weeks? Why is he confident enough to even send him out there to attempt a 51-yarder or 54 or whatever it was? And the answer is, look, I gotta still call the game the way that I see that it needs to be called. Like, if this is a field goal opportunity, it's a great day, it's Tampa, it's great weather, he should be able to bang a 50. We know he's capable of banging a 54-yarder home. So if he can make it, I've got to still trust that he's going to make it. If I'm not going to send him out there to kick this kick, why is he on the roster? So it's rough. What's crazy is the Vikings are actually a good team. Like I've been talking all year, they're not a good team. They're getting better. That secondary is getting better, and Zimmer is starting to trust this young secondary. They got a bunch of youngins. Remember, that was the reason I said 8-8 this season, because you're just too young on the defensive side of the football. Now, I didn't account for no Danielle Hunter all season. I didn't account for Everson Griffin getting traded early in the season. And I didn't account for Yannick Ngakoue being traded away after you waved the white flag, in week 7 or 8 of the season. I didn't see any of that coming. I thought you were going to be able to have a legitimate pass rush to go along with the young corners. But they're coming of age. They're starting to trust these guys. I didn't like the helmet-to-helmet, the hit that they called on Harrison Smith. I just thought that the officiating wasn't great in this game towards Minnesota, but that's nor here nor there. You got to make kicks, and your field goal kicker didn't. And so the Buccaneers get a much-needed win after the bye. They're 8-5, and they're looking to close in on a postseason berth. They're going to continue to have to win, and I'm not impressed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I am not impressed with the Buccaneers, but a win's a win in the National Football League. And if they can just avoid the turnovers, I think they're going to be just fine in Tampa Bay. As far as the Vikings are concerned, this is one you'd like to get, but the missed field goals, the poor officiating, it was just too much to overcome in this ball game. As we get to the next game up on the docket, Broncos, Panthers. This was a fun one, man. I watched this one start to finish. We got an exhilarating punt return in this game, and that kicked off the scoring. And then after that, it just all hell broke loose. Drew Lock, 4 touchdown passes in this game. It's funny because there were so many people talking shit about Drew Lock after the Raiders game where he had 4 interceptions, and then the Chiefs game. And it's funny because people are so wishy-washy in this league as fans. People waffle so much. They're flaky as hell, especially on these young quarterbacks, especially when you've seen them do it and they continue to show you what they've done. It's one thing if it's Dwayne Haskins and he showed you glimpses of what you think he could be last year, and then you see none of that this year. Not a single snap of it this year. Drew Lock has shown flashes this year of what he showed us last year when they finished the season 4-1. And he played exceptional football. And this is another example of that. 21 of 27, 284 touchdowns. And the Panthers defensively they're not the little sisters of the poor. And he went out there and he was stroking it against those boys. Proud of him, because I'm a Drew Lock fan, as you know. KJ Hamler had a coming out party. He only had 2 catches for 86 yards, but both of them were touchdowns. One was like 43. The other one was like 43, I guess. 43 and 43 is 86. So we're going to call it 2 43-yard bombs. They probably weren't equally distributed, but there were 2 bombs nonetheless. And I told you one of the biggest things that Drew Lock could do coming out of Missouri was throw the deep ball. And I hadn't really seen it this year. We saw it last year. Hadn't really seen it this year. Well, we saw it in this game. I couldn't be more excited for Drew Lock. As for the Panthers, another tough, hard-fought loss. Teddy Bridgewater, 30 of 40 for 283. He was solid in this game, but I look at Teddy Bridgewater and there's this glass ceiling I see for Teddy. Like, there's only so much you can get done with Teddy. To me, if Matt Rule wants to win and win big in this league, he's going to have to upgrade Teddy. Not necessarily right now. I'm not saying they have to draft a guy right now, but Teddy, you cannot win big unless your defense is elite. He's the Black Alex Smith. I've already explained this. So I'm probably not telling you anything that you don't already know, but there's only so much you can do with Teddy. It's at the end of this game, it's 4th and like 12, and Teddy throws a 4-yard pass underneath, and I'm like, seriously, dude? You're going to throw the ball 8 yards short of the sticks and ask your guy to run past 3 defenders and get the first down? I don't give a shit if nobody... You have to throw the ball past the sticks unless this guy is wide open and you think he's going to be able to catch it and turn up the field and run for 13. You can't throw it underneath with 3 defenders staring at this guy, going to tackle him 4 yards short of the first down. And he just checks it down casually like it's 3rd and 12 and he's going to have another shot. That's Teddy Bridgewater, though. There's only so much you can do with that, man. But anyway, Panthers are now 4-9. Broncos are 5-8. And to me, it's a big win for Vic Fangio because I'm on the Vic Fangio needs to be retained train. And the only way that happens is if they continue to play competitive football down the stretch. And they just won a game that I didn't think they were going to win on the road against the Panthers team that was coming off of a bye week. So that's a big win for Vic Fangio as they're now 5-8 on the season. Titans and Jaguars, I'll make this one really short and sweet because this one was a non-competitive game from pretty much start to finish. This thing was 17-3 at halftime. After 3 quarters, this thing was 31-10, and that's the final score in this game. Derrick Henry was the story here. 26 carries, 215, 2 touchdowns. Takes the lead in NFL history with the most 200-yard, 2-touchdown rushing efforts. And now he's back on pace to potentially hit 2,000. I know a lot of you haven't been really paying attention to this, but if Derrick Henry averages about 160 over the last 3 games, and we know he's fully capable. The Lions are on that schedule. They give it up on the ground routinely. The Green Bay's on the schedule. They give it up on the ground routinely. The key in that Green Bay game will be to get off to a fast start and to score so that the run game isn't taken out of the mix. Derrick Henry he's approaching 2,000 yards in the season. Now, I know a lot of you haven't been paying attention to that. Derrick Henry is approaching 2,000 yards on the season, and he's doing it in style with these 200-yard performances. This has got to be his 2nd or 3rd one of these this season. And he loves the Jacksonville Jaguars. Every year he's doing this to them. Every year he's doing this to the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's amazing. A.J. Brown with a one-handed circus catch on a flea flicker for a touchdown. He was exceptional in this game. 7 catches, 112 yards, and a touchdown. Ryan Tannehill didn't have to do much. 19-24, 212 yards, 2 touchdowns. To me, the Jaguars, they were trying to tank. I don't say that often because I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but Gardner Minshew gives you the best chance to win. And I've stated that already. So the fact that they just put him in this game and he's going to start next week, that's stupid. He should have been starting as soon as he was back from his injury. He should have been back in the lineup. Whatever. Jaguars lose this game. They're 1-12 on the season. Titans improve to 9-4 and stay atop the AFC South Division. Colts Raiders. This was a back and forth affair until we got into the 4th quarter where the Colts ran away and hid with this football game. But, at halftime, you're looking at a 20-14 game. Colts are making plays. Big T.Y. Hilton touchdown in this game. It was a great response to a Raiders touchdown that had given the Raiders a lead at 14-10. And so you saw that these two teams were evenly matched for about 3 quarters. We went into the 4th quarter of this game, and the score is 27-20. And that's when the Colts said, okay, enough is enough. We got to hit the accelerator and pull away from you. And the Raiders started making mistakes. Derek Carr gets picked off, throws it to his running back. It tips off of his hands. Jalen Richard, his 3rd down back, off his fingers into the waiting arms of one of the safeties for the Indianapolis Colts. And he takes it the distance. And that was really the back-breaking blow there. That was the thing that busted the game open, along with a big run. And this was the best day for the rookie Jonathan Taylor out of Wisconsin. This is what they thought they were getting when they drafted him. He had a big run in this game of, let me see how big that run was. It was a 62-yarder out of the gun. It was a thing of beauty because that was the speed we saw at Wisconsin, the ability to pull away from people. Remember, he ran that 4.38 at the combine, and I was like, whoa, I didn't know you were that fast. And we hadn't really seen that this year. We hadn't seen the breakaway speed. Well, he ran away from those Raider defenders on that play. 20 carries, $150 for Jonathan Taylor in this game, and a couple of touches. This is the game that they've been waiting for from him. And if they can continue to get these kind of efforts from him, along with Nyheim Hines and what he's able to do, and T.Y. Hilton is, to me, the more important thing here is Eugene has went to sleep and T.Y. is back. Eugene, when he shows up, this team is ineffective largely in the passing game. When T.Y. Hilton shows up, this team is tough to deal with. 5 catches, 86 yards, 2 touches, and as I mentioned, a big play in this game of 41 for one of the touchdowns. After the Raiders had taken the lead 14-10, he responds with the 41-yarder. So this was an all-around effort by the Colts. The defense chimed in with some turnovers forced and took one to the crib. Phillip Rivers stayed clean. I told you, if Phillip Rivers doesn't turn the football over, they're going to be tough to beat. With the way they play defense and the capabilities that they have on offense, I love their tight ends with Ali Mo Cox, and I like the the white dude. Can't think of his name, 84. But I like their tight ends. I like their receivers. I like their backs. Phillip Rivers, if he doesn't turn it over, I love their defense. And Matt Eberflus, if Phillip Rivers doesn't turn it over, this Colts team is dangerous, and they proved it again. And I told you, Vegas just isn't ready for the show because of their defense. So much so that John Gruden, after the game, fired his defensive coordinator. And I mean, at this point of the season, I don't know if it's going to make that much of a difference or not, but it's rough. It's rough because they've given up some big numbers on the scoreboard this year. 40 to the Falcons a couple of weeks ago, 40 again here, 40 to Tampa earlier this season. The defense has not been good, and it continued in this game. Jets at the Seahawks, and in just in case you were wondering, 9-4 for those Tennessee Titans, and our Indianapolis Colts tied atop the division with the Indianapolis Colts. Seahawks and Jets, again, I don't need to spend a lot of time on this thing. 40-3, this one was a one-sided beatdown. It was 23-3 at halftime. It was 40-3 going into the, or 37-3 going into the fourth quarter. Russell Wilson, 4 touchdown passes in this game. Look, the Jets, I'll just say this. They were highly competitive early in this game. They were getting defensive stops, and the score was 17-3, and their field goal kicker missed 2 kicks. And they were very makeable kicks, one from like 37 and the other from like 39. He pushed one wide right, the other wide left, and at that point, they gave up. What are you going to do? We get down there, and you got a chip shot field goal, and you got this kicker that we've never heard of off the street from a couple of weeks ago, and he can't put it through the uprights. What do you do? I mean, yeah. At some point, you lose all fighting spirit at that point. And you can see with every missed kick, some life come out of the Jets' body that was almost lifeless coming into the game to begin with after the Raiders debacle last week. So 40-3. Look, I don't have much to say about this game. The Seattle Seahawks are 9-4. They're still tied atop that division with the Los Angeles Rams, and I think that division is going to be decided more likely than not in week number 16. We'll see what happens there. Packers-Lions. Packers get the win, and couple that with a loss by the Saints later on in the afternoon to the Philadelphia Eagles. The Packers are now atop the NFC Conference at 10-3 with this latest victory, 31-24 over the Detroit Lions. Again, there's something off with this Packers team, especially defensively. Offensively, as long as teams continue to not be able to have an answer for Davante Adams, which for the life of me, I can't understand. Another 100-yard performance for him, 7 catches, $115, and a touch for Davante Adams. I just don't understand how you allow this guy to continue to kill you like he did in this game. What's amazing when I think about Davante Adams is he's only got 1,000-yard season in his career. One. Coming into this year. He's already eclipsed 1,000 yards this season with 1,100. And, a lot of that is due to injuries. He usually doesn't play a full season. He stayed relatively healthy this year. And I just don't know how teams allow. This is the one guy. If I'm playing the Green Bay Packers, if Robert Tonyan and Alan Lazard and Marquez Valdez-Scantling want to go ape shit on me, be my guest. You're going to have to do me. But it won't be, I guarantee you, if I got to cover him with 3 guys, Rodgers will not be having a field day with 17. It just isn't happening against me. I'm sorry. If I got to play triangle coverage against him, a bracket coverage, wherever he goes, he's got 3 guys watching him at all times, then I will do that. because I don't have confidence in the rest of the Packers offense to kill me. And yet every week, and I got to give the Packers credit, they move Davante Adams around. He's not stationary. He's not just at the X. He's at the Z. He's in the slot. He's moving around. They got him in motion. They got him jet sweeps. They move him around so you can't get your hands on him at the line of scrimmage and you can't impact him. They put him in bunch sets and they put him at the back of a bunch set so there's other receivers releasing and he comes off late. They do so many things to make sure that you can't really disrupt the timing of the route. But that doesn't stop me from putting 2 or 3 guys on his ass. Hey, you got short, you got intermediate, and you got deep over the top. Let's make this thing happen. And yet, 7 catches, $115, including a big catch and run of 56 for a touchdown. I don't understand it. So the Packers continue to have it going offensively. Rodgers continues his MVP push, 26 of 33, 290, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. But they gave it up on the defensive side of the football, and that's the thing that's scary. Like, this game was nip and tuck. For much of the game, it was tied at 14 at halftime. Packers went into the fourth quarter nursing a 7-point lead at 21-14. And then, you felt like they were pulling away. And then Stafford gets injured. And then they give up a monster kick return that sets up Chase Daniel to come in the game and run for a touchdown. And then they kick the onside kick and didn't recover. And they lose this game 31-24. But They don't do a lot of things well defensively and even on special teams. Giving up the big play there where you're at a point now where Stafford's out of the game with a rib, and you can't give up the return there to set up a scoring opportunity that allows them to stay in the game. You can't do that. That's not complimentary football. But all in all, they did enough to win this game. The prognosis on Stafford is up in the air for this upcoming week's game. And we know this guy's tough as nails. He's tough as nails. So it wouldn't shock me if Stafford came back and played. He's got to get out of Detroit, man. He's got to get out of Detroit. I think for all parties involved, I think it's just the right thing to do. Start over, hit the reset button, get you a young quarterback this year in the draft. And let's just start this thing over. Let Stafford go on his way. You trade him. You get you a first-round pick for him. All right. And you let Stafford go on and try to win a Super Bowl somewhere else. I don't know if there's a team out there looking for a Matthew Stafford. Maybe a Washington is intrigued by a guy like Stafford who's still probably got 5 or 6 really good years of football left in him. I don't know the answer there. I don't know who's interested, but I know somebody would give up some draft capital to get Matthew Stafford. I think it's time for this thing to end. I really do. But the Packers get the win. They're 10-3, and they're now the number 1 seed in the NFC. And the Lions are now 5-8, and their season is all but done. It was already done, but hey, had they won this game, gotten to 6-7, they'd be right in the mix with Chicago and Minnesota and all those 6-7 teams. Now they're 5-8, and they're dead. Saints, Eagles. We talked about this game earlier in the show. 24-21 victory for the Eagles. The Saints, they came out in this game lifeless. This game was 17-0 at half. They were thoroughly dominated. They really thought they were going to just show up and that the Eagles were going to lay down for them and that Jalen Hurts was going to wet the bed and he was going to fumble and throw interceptions. And none of those things transpired in this game. And they were awful in the first half. They rallied back. They got it to 17-14 going into the fourth. And I'm thinking, okay, they're going to come back, hawk these boys and win. And they just weren't able to manufacture the kind of offense that I thought they were going to be able to manufacture in that fourth quarter. And they didn't score a touchdown until literally a minute and 20 left in the fourth quarter to make it interesting. They were down 24-14. This game was over. They gave up the big run to Miles Sanders, the 82-yarder, which is inexcusable. I mean, you just can't give that up. Right before half, no less. Like, it's stupid. It's dumb. It can't happen, but it did. They gave up 4. Let me check. I think it was 4 fourth down conversions in this game for the Eagles. Let's see how many times they went for it on fourth down. 2 of 4 for the Eagles on fourth down. And one of them was the Alshon Jeffrey touchdown on one of the first possessions of the game. So, again, The Saints, they came out lackluster, and by the time they realized that they needed to turn it up, it was a little too late, And so that's a costly loss to a 3-8-1 team now that is 4-8-1. It's a costly loss if you're the Saints. And this is why I say, if you're in the NFC, you just need to get in. This isn't the AFC. There aren't the Chiefs, the Steelers, the Bills, or even the Browns to a lesser degree staring you in the face. Titans or Colts. There aren't those teams where you think, damn, if I beat this team, then I still got to beat this team. And if I beat that team, shit, I still got to beat them. That's not the case in the NFC. Anybody can be had. The Packers are vulnerable. The Saints are vulnerable. The Seahawks are vulnerable. The only team I look at, and the Rams are vulnerable, but their defense is the one thing that I say, hey, you can rely on this. The NFC is wide open. You just got to get in. I could easily see a 6 or a 7 seed doing damage in the NFC. If the right 6 or 7 seed, I could see Tampa as a 6 seed doing damage. I could see Arizona as a 7 seed doing some really, really crucial damage this season. This thing is wide open in the NFC because of games like this. And I get it, no Drew Brees. Drew Brees hasn't been good in the playoffs. Who gives a shit about Drew Brees coming back? The Saints have been vulnerable in the playoffs every single year. So when you look at the Saints and you look at the Packers, you say, why not? Why can't I go to Lambeau and win? The Vikings did it. I get it. I know that's family business. I get it. But the Vikings did it. Why the hell can't I do it? Why can't I beat the Saints? The Eagles did it. Why can't I beat them? Why can't I beat the Packers? The Buccaneers blew them to smithereens. The NFC is ridiculous. It's wide open, and the Eagles proved that again on Sunday with this win. Jalen Hurts over 100 yards rushing in this game. Miles Sanders over 100 yards rushing. That's what the Eagles fans had been begging for. Run the football, Doug. Run it. Well, this is not manufactured runs. I mean, these aren't play-called runs. These are manufactured runs. Jalen Hurts took it upon himself. Some of those were called runs. Some of his, 16 or 18? I think it's 18 rushes by Jalen Hurts in this game. 18 rushes for 106 yards. All right. Some of those were called runs, read option, and he kept it, or some of these were quarterback keeps, things of that nature. But a lot of these were Jalen Hurts taking it upon himself to say, okay, things breaking down. I don't like my first read. A gap's open. I'm going to take it. So, impressive win by the Eagles. I talked about that earlier in the show. Just a debilitating loss for the Saints. And you deserve to not be the number 1 seed. You can't beat the Philadelphia Eagles. Everybody else is doing it. You can't beat the Eagles. You deserve to lose. The number 1 seed in the NFC. They're now 10-3 and tied atop the NFC with the Green Bay Packers, who own the tiebreaker over the Saints after beating them in New Orleans in Week 3 of the 2020 season. So again, the Saints now need help to get back on top of the Packers in the NFC conference and get that all elusive number 1 seed and the only bye available in the 2020 playoffs in the conference. Falcons and Chargers. This game was crazy at the end. I tweeted out first of all, this game forced me to tweet twice. Okay, forced me to tweet twice, and I tweeted during another game, and that was the Indianapolis game. If you haven't seen the one-hand interception by Moore, their corner Moore, who I love, go and treat yourself to one of the best one-hand snags of the season. It's right up there with the Odell Beckham one-hander. I don't think anything will ever top that, but this is damn close. Anyway, and this is a corner, mind you. He's not a receiver. But back to the Falcons and the Chargers. I told you this was two teams staring in the mirror, and that's exactly what we got in this game. Both of these two teams stink. I mean, this was tragic to watch down the stretch. Are you kidding me? First and foremost, I tweeted out because I thought Laquan Treadwell was buried and gone in terms of his NFL career. I thought he was out selling, real estate or, selling cars or something by now. Laquan Treadwell caught a touchdown in this game for the Atlanta Falcons. I said, who? What? What? Laquan who? I immediately got on my phone and I was tweeting out a Laquan Treadwell sighting. I repeat, a Laquan Treadwell sighting in Atlanta. This man caught a touchdown pass. What is going on? Anyway, this game forced me to tweet out the following. I dot or period hate period the period Falcons period. I should have put 2020 Falcons, but you get the gist. I told you I don't know why I'm picking them. I know what they're going to do to me. They enjoy defecating all over me. They love it. They take this pride in just effing me week after week. How can we screw Louie T this week? And this was impressive by Matt Ryan, okay? Because neither one of these teams wanted to win. Had they not been playing each other, this would have been a loss for both of them. Okay? Like, the only reason one of them won is because they were playing each other. Had they not been playing each other, they would have both lost in this game. That's how bad they were down the stretch. So the Falcons are on their way down the field to win this thing. You know, under 5 minutes, Matt Ryan has these boys going down the field, and I'm like, let's go, man. I'm going to finally get one of these damn Falcons games right. And they're heading down the field, and he throws an interception. I said, are you kidding me? Matt, really? At this time of the game, you going to do that bullshit? So Justin Herbert's like, all right, I'm going to go take our team down the field, and we're going to win this thing. He throws an interception. I'm like, okay, let's go, Matt. You got a chance to redeem yourself. And Matt has those boys right there. He didn't have to complete another pass. They don't have to gain another yard. They're in Young Wei Koo's wheelhouse. And I don't think he's missed a 50-yarder yet this season. So, and this one wasn't going to be 50. It was going to be like 40-something or 30-something. They were, as a matter of fact, I don't have to guess. I can go and see where that interception took place at. He throws an interception at the Chargers' 45-yard line. So, they would have needed to gain some more yards. I take that back. No. Yep. Short right intercepted. Yeah, unnecessary roughness. Yeah. All right. So they would have had to gain some more yards. But in the moment, it felt like, man, they got this one. After Herbert threw that interception, they got this. They got it. And he throws another interception. I'm like, are you effing kidding me right now, Matt? What are you doing? You thought that was smart? You need to go wash your face and get your damn mind right. What are we doing right now? You too old for this shit? You too damn old. Let the young fella throw a pick late in the game that cost him. You too old for that shit. He's a rookie. He's supposed to do that. You an old grizzled veteran. You don't do that shit, Matt. You leave that for the youngins. He out here acting like one of these young boys in the club. Take your old ass home, man. And you know what's going to happen after that. You already knew. Michael Badgley, who had been awful all season long and in these situations hadn't come up big, of course he was going to make the field goal late. What else did you think was going to happen? And of course, 6 plays, 49 yards, right down the field. They get in the field goal range, and he knocks the field goal home. And I said, that would happen to me. Thank you, Atlanta. I'm never picking them the rest. I don't care who they playing. They can be playing the Jets. I'm not picking the Falcons no more this season. They're just going to have to shit all over me in the loss column. I'm not picking them no more. I'm sick of them. So, 20-17. Both teams are 4-9, and they deserve each other. They deserve to be 4-9 because they're two 4-9 teams. The end of that game was just wacky. It's crazy. Reminded me of that Bills-Chargers game a couple of weeks ago where it's turnover. Like, who wants to win the game? Nobody. Washington 49ers, this one brings a smile to my face. And it warms my heart because this is the defense that we were expecting after the Philadelphia game with 8 sacks and 3 interceptions of Carson Wentz, or was it 2? I think it was 2 interceptions and a forced fumble. But whatever it was, this was the defense we thought we were getting, after that Philadelphia Week 1 performance. And we hadn't really seen this defense since then. We hadn't seen the abundance of turnovers. We didn't see us harassing quarterbacks like this. We've harassed some quarterbacks this season. I don't want to make it seem like we haven't, but this was all defense. 23-15, Washington keeps their win streak alive at now 4 games. Takes sole possession of first place with the win over the 49ers, who dropped to 5-8. And for all intents and purposes, any hopes of making the postseason are dashed now at 5-8 with the loss. This defense was dominant in this game, and they had to be. And because the offense was just, for as dominant as the defense was, the offense was just as anemic at times. Not all the time. They ran the football very effectively. As a matter of fact, let's look at what the rushing attempts, 28 for 98 for Washington. And, that's factoring in 4 rushes for Dwayne Haskins for negative 12 yards. So if you take that out of the equation, it's 24 for 110. That's 4 a pop. So this was a really good rushing effort. J.D. McKissick 11 for 68 for 6.2 a pop. Peyton Barber 12 for 37 for 3.1. And look, I thought they ran it well enough for us to be successful. Where we really were hurt in this game was the quarterbacks were not good. Alex Smith was 8 of 19 for 57 yards and an interception before he left the game with an injury to his calf. It tightened up on him. They couldn't get it loose. So in comes Dwayne Haskins, 7 of 12 for 51 yards. He took a sack as well, but he did not turn it over. He tried, but he did not turn it over. He missed some throws that were there to be had, but all in all, his first possession when he came in was actually really impressive. Took us down the field, got us in the field goal range. Would have loved to have gotten in the end zone, because if you get in the end zone on that possession, it's then 20-7, and at that point the 49ers are dead in this game. But instead you left the door open, and instead of it being 20-7, it was 16-7, and so the 49ers were still had a pulse in this game. But the defense scored another defensive touchdown. They were moving the football down the field. First of all, Chase Young forced a fumble. It was recovered by Daron Payne. That led to Washington points early in the game. Then Daron Payne returns the favor, forces a fumble. Chase Young scoops it up, scores it, right before the half to give Washington their first lead of the game at 13-7. We come out of the halftime break. Alex Smith is not right. So Haskins, who had come in late stages of the first half, continues to play, takes us down the field, gets the field goal. The 49ers try to respond, and that's when you get the pick six by Cameron Curl. And so that extends it out to 23-7, excuse me. And we had it on cruise control from that point on. Look, offense, just don't F it up. Right, 2 defensive touchdowns. They can't do anything. And then we had them 4th and 12. All right, we had them 3rd and 12, and it's an incomplete pass. And Montez Sweat is flagged for roughing the passer. And that kept the drive alive, and they ended up scoring a touchdown on that drive, getting the 2-point conversion, and cutting it to a 1-score game at 23-15, which is an 8-point game. So we had to sweat it out, but the defense stepped up, made plays, got us off the field on 4th and 12 late in the game. Montez Sweat drew a holding penalty with the 49ers threatening after the 2-minute warning. It was 3rd and 2, and Montez Sweat draws a holding penalty. And on a 22-yard gain that would have put the 49ers 1st and 10 from the Washington 22-yard line. Instead, it pushed them back 10 yards, forced a 4th and 12, or 3rd and 12, excuse me, that they did not convert. And then a 4th and 12 that they also did not convert. So big win for Washington. Huge day for the defense. Two defensive touchdowns, 3 turnovers forced in this game. The 49ers were 2 of 2 in the red zone. Washington was 0 of 2, and that was the difference in the game. I thought the play calling in the red zone was atrocious for Washington. But the 3 turnovers for the 49ers in this game were costly because Washington scored 4 times off of, or 3 times, excuse me, off of defensive mishaps or offensive mishaps by the 49ers. And that really was the difference in the football game as Washington is victorious 23-15 over the San Francisco 49ers. And then Sunday Night Football, Steelers-Bills. We watched that one. We broke that one down already. So I don't have to really get into that one. Bills were dancing on the sidelines all over the Pittsburgh Steelers, having some fun after a late turnover. They win that football game 26-15 over the Steelers. Second straight loss for the Steelers after starting the season 11-0. They're now 11-2 and a game back of the 12-1 Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC race for the number 1 seed. Meanwhile, for the Buffalo Bills, they've now hit the double-digit win mark on the season at 10-3, and they are playing some really good football, and they now have created a little distance between themselves and the Dolphins in the AFC. Dolphins fall to 8-5. Bills improve to 10-3, and they're closing in on winning their first AFC East division crown since the 90s. So big win for them tonight. I got a couple of super chats, I think. So I do want to knock these out real quick before we get out of here and move on to garbage time. Silver V, my man Silver Villains, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, Silver V, who writes, thanks for keeping it 100 and giving me props, Louie T. No, when you make declarations like you did on Friday, when you doubled down because you super chatted to tell me. You know, it's one thing if you do it on Wednesday when we open the floor up on social media maneuvers. It's another thing when you say, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I'm going to put up some bread to let you know what's about to happen. I got to give you some respect for that. And for you to not only go against the grain, because the prevailing thought was, oh yeah, the Saints going to destroy this young fella and they're going to win this game. For you to not only go against the grain, but to damn near nail the score, props. I got to bow to you. All right, that was big time. Got another super chat here from Melqui Jimenez. Thank you for the super chat, Melqui Jimenez, who writes, you make work go by so quick. Thanks for doing what you do. Hail from Kansas. I appreciate you, Melqui. Greatly appreciate you. And anything I can help to make, those mundane and arduous tasks go by a lot quicker, sign me up for that, man. I'm all for it. I'm here for it. All of it. So I'm glad I could be of some assistance. And then finally got one here from my girl, Rebe. Reborn Soul Vibes, my girl, Rebe. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. And as always, it's a pleasure to hear from you. My girl, Rebe, writes, from tall glass of yucky milk to Kool-Aid, hydrating and tastes good, but not really healthy for you. Can I get a nutritious smoothie from now on in? You need one of those. Okay? But I don't know if you're going to get that this year. With Dougie pulling the strings, I don't know if you're going to get a smoothie. You may have to settle for some diabetes-like Kool-Aid. I'm sorry. It's better than the yucky milk, though, right? I mean, you were just sipping some 2-day-old milk just a couple of weeks ago. So to go from that to the glass of Kool-Aid, look, we'll take it. I know, but it hits you right here. You're like, that's a little sweet. Yeah, it was a little sweet. And yeah, a nutritious smoothie would be delicious and great. But I don't know if you're in nutritious smoothie territory. I don't know if you're in a position to grab you one of those and go much faster than slow. I think you might be whipping up some more of that tropical punch Kool-Aid with way too much sugar. But hey, we'll see. Jalen Hurts took the milk out of your hand and replaced it with Kool-Aid. Maybe you could take the Kool-Aid out of your hand and replace it with a smoothie. A nice strawberry banana smoothie. We'll see. I wouldn't bank on it, though, Rebe. I'm going to be honest with you. I wouldn't bank on that. That being said, let's get out of here with garbage time. All right, so we got Monday Night Football on deck. We got Browns. We got Ravens. This is a massive game in the AFC North Division for various reasons. I can't even begin to explain this to you, but I'm going to try. So from the home team and the better team record-wise, the 9-3 Browns, you got a chance to get within a game of the Steelers with a win here to go to 10-3 and just be one game back. And you still have the Steelers on the schedule later on in the season. So this could set you up in a position to potentially win the division. And we don't know what's going to happen with the Steelers moving forward, but you just want to have a chance. And if you want that chance, you need to win this game tonight. Your chances won't be dead if you don't, but they become slim and none. if you don't win this game tonight. So big on that part. And I was talking to my girl, I said it could be a double whammy for the Browns. They could inch closer to the Steelers, and they could do some serious debilitating damage to the Baltimore Ravens playoff hopes with a win here. So, the Ravens and the Steelers have been the bullies of the AFC North for quite some time. And one of the teams that they've bullied around are these Browns. Even Cincinnati rose up a couple of times and said, hey, man, I'm sick of your shit. The Browns, not so much, okay? They've always been the one they could rely on. If they wanted some lunch money and they didn't want to spend their own, they could just go to the Browns. Hey, give me your lunch money, man. No, I don't want to give you my lunch money. And then they just slap them once or twice. All right, here you go. Take it. Just spare me. Leave me alone. So now you got a chance to be a bully yourself. You can actually step to the bully and rock him in his jaw. And we all know bullies don't like to be hit in the mouth. They don't like to be hit in the mouth. You got a chance to hit the bully where it hurts, and you got a chance to really cripple them. We're going to see if you can do that tonight. Now, if you're the Ravens, you have to rely on all of the work you've done for the last decade in really shaming these Browns. You have to rely on the fact that they still have a Baltimore Ravens complex, and that they look at you and they're afraid. They're scared and they're cowering in the corner somewhere. You've got to prey on that. And the way you do that is you jump on them early. If you allow them to run the football and to have a little bit of confidence. Remember when they beat the shit out of you last year in Baltimore? When they put up 40 and Nick Chubb went ape shit and you were like, whoa, what the hell just happened? Remember that? That could happen again tonight if you're not careful. Just ask the Titans last week what happened. Before they knew what the hell hit them, it was 38-7 at halftime. So don't become one of those statistics. All I'm telling you to do is come out, establish yourself defensively in this game, and get after their defense with the run game of your own. Because if you allow them to get into an offensive rhythm and they start to gain confidence and they say, hey, Bake, you're good. You don't have to do a lot tonight. We're going to run the football. We're going to go play action fake, and we're going to have a couple of shot opportunities for you. But for the most part, we're going to keep you out of harm's way. You're going to throw it 22 times tonight. We're going to run it 32 times, and we're going to win this thing, 23 to 13, then you're in trouble, because that's what they would prefer to do. But if you really want them to get out of their element, you jump on them early, 14-0, 14-3, 17-3, and you force them to go away from what they want to do, which is run the football, and put it in Baker Mayfield's hands. And then you get after Baker Mayfield, you speed him up, and you see if you can't get him to make a mistake or two. I ultimately, I think this is going to be a really good game. But when it's all said and done, I told you, I doubled down on the Ravens when they lost to the Steelers. I said they're going to win 5 straight, and they're going to go 11-5, and they're going to make the playoffs, because I just can't envision an AFC playoffs without the Ravens. I can't envision an AFC Ravens-less playoff. I just can't see it. So they already took care of business against the Cowboys like they were supposed to. Here's the next one up on the docket. And so this is a big one. You don't win here, you don't want to go to the playoffs. You don't need to go to the playoffs. Let somebody else go that's going to really treasure and take advantage of this opportunity. You serious about making the postseason? You serious about doing some damage? Here's an opportunity. Go make it happen. I think the Ravens will do exactly that. I think they win this football game 27-17 over the Browns. I think the Browns do have some success on the ground at times, but not enough to move the needle. I think they force a turnover or two and ultimately win this game going away 27-10, do the Baltimore Ravens over the Cleveland Browns. And with the win, if they can get it, the Ravens will take the spot of the Miami Dolphins as the 7th seed in the postseason, and they will become the 7th seed, and the Dolphins will then be on the outside looking in. So that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. I thank you guys for joining me here on the pod. Look forward to chopping it up with you tonight after the game. I think it's going to be a dandy. I can't wait. Bart Scott can't wait to break that one down and watch it and see how it unfolds. A lot is going to be riding on this game, because I think we're going to find out a lot about both of these teams moving forward in tonight's contest, because I think it's going to be physical. I think it's going to be a gut check for both teams. And we're going to really see. I believe in the Browns now. After last week, watching what they did to Tennessee, I believe in the Browns. But how much? We're going to find out tonight. As for the Ravens, if you're serious, show me you're serious. So we'll see what happens, but I look forward to chopping it up with you guys tonight, as I mentioned, and I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. If you haven't already done so, what are you waiting on? Go ahead and subscribe to the Louie Tee Network for more great content. Turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a thing, and hit that like button. It's 136 of y'all out there right now. I got 52 likes. Let's get that up to 60. Let's get it up to 65, 70. All right, so if you haven't hit that like button already, please do so on the way out. I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. Remember, if it's not your man T, it's not. I repeat, not the best NFL coverage it could be. Until next time, you guys take care, have a good one, and I will see you later on for Monday Night Football Overtime.
Louie Tee